Hello and welcome to episode 60 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me, as always, for most of the time, is my brother Ben.
Hello, welcome to the show.
And what a show we have for you today, dear listener and or viewer. Um, it should be a good one. I'm excited.
Me too.
Fresh from the event. Not often do we record so soon after an event, but today is that day.
Yeah,
But
we had to get our hustle on. We've got to get this content out, you lickety split.
yes, yeah. But before we get into the content that nobody really cares about, let's get into the content that everyone cares about, which is, of course, the ale. Ben, what are you drinking this fine evening?
Well, Sam, I have myself a Glamdring Pale Ale.
Mmm.
This pint is a real beta one.
God damn it, that's so good. I hate it.
Yeah. Cheers. And what about you, Sam? What are you having for this extra interesting special episode?
Well, Ben, I'm having a Longshanks lager, and as you know, not all those who drink are drunk, not all that foams is beer, and good hops are not touched by the frost.
Very good, very good.
Sitting on that one for a minute there.
Yeah, that sounds like it's come out of the beer bank.
Yeah, I should have read that a few times before we started recording, so I didn't have to be like off to the side as I'm reading it off
I'm
my
just
phone.
glad I didn't stumble through mine for the first time in quite a while. I've been mumbling through mine recently, and I nailed that one, I think.
Nailed it. Nailed it. It's so good. All right, man. So what are we talking about in this episode? Do you want to tell me, tell our listener, tell our viewers, tell us all?
Well, we have come back from the Nova Open just 2 short days ago, and we are going to be talking about our first 2 games of the Grand Tournament. We're going to dive right into the biggest, baddest event at the convention. We definitely had the best boards. We're going to talk a little bit about our first 2 games each, and then we're going to talk some about the convention itself, go over the placings of the GT, and maybe talk a little bit about the lists for some of the top players.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if you don't want any spoilers on that, if you haven't seen who's won or whatever, and you don't want to know if Ben and I were in on the podium spots, then after the final game review, I would consider turning it off and waiting to hear the placings at the end of the second episode. Before we get into all of that stuff, I do need to. I meant to say this slightly earlier. I have through some mishaps, I'm not using my normal microphone, and so if my audio is slightly crappier than normal, I apologize. Hopefully it's usable enough. Well, if you're seeing this, it's usable enough, and I will hopefully have fixed it in such a way that you won't even be able to tell. But just in case, I thought I would say something.
All right, thank you, Sam, for letting us know if you sound terrible. I'm sure we already noticed if you did. So, shall we talk about some army lists, Sam?
Oh yeah, we should definitely do that. That's the first thing we always talk about, Ben.
So Sam, Nova 1,000 points. A
Wow.
lot of points. I think if you've listened or watched our previous couple of episodes, it might not be a surprise as to what I am bringing at 1,000 points to Nova. So we're going to start it off with my army list before finding out what Sam has decided to bring. So I have in my army. There is my army list. It is led by Gandalf the White on Shadowfax. In his warband there are 7 warriors of Minas Tirith with shields, 5 guard of the Fountain Court with shields, 2 rangers of Gondor with spear, and 1 citadel guard on horse with longbow. Next we've got Boromir, captain of the White Tower, with banner, horse, and shield. In his warband there are 7 warriors of Minas Tirith with shield, 5 guard of the Fountain Court with shield, 1 Osgiliath veteran with spear and shield, 1 ranger with spear, and 1 citadel guard on horse with longbow. Next we've got Madril, captain of Athelion, with 6 warriors of Minas Tirith with shield and 6 rangers with spear. And finally, in his all on his own as a random warband drop, we have Theodred, heir of Rohan, on horse with shield. for a total of 46 models and 15 might. Trying to make the White Wizard more playable, I suppose. Bringing him back.
Yeah.
So there we have it, Sam. We left Denethor at home. This time I decided I wanted some mounted Citadel Guard for objective grabbing and cavalry shenanigans rather than bringing Denethor. So traded him out.
Makes sense. Interesting. I'll be interested to see how, or hear how it all went for you. Obviously, I know the final results, but I don't know the specifics. So it'll be interesting.
Well, Sam, so that's my army list. Let's hear all about yours. What did you decide to crack open for 1,000 points, Sam?
Yes, Ben. Well, for 1,000 points, I played the most possibly competitive list of all time. I, of course, played the Grey Company. There we go. Look at that. Look at that list. How ridiculous does that look on screen? So, obviously, the army has to include Aragorn, who is, in fact, the leader. He gets Anduril for free. He's got the bow, the elven cloak, and the armor. Then we've got Legolas with armor and elven cloak. We've got Gimli with elven cloak. We've got Elladan and Elrohir, both with heavy armor, elf bows, and elven cloaks. We've got Halbarad with the banner of Arwen Evenstar, it is Arwen Evenstar. And then 10 Rangers of the North, all with spears. And Ben, what I was doing while you were reading through your army list, so if you paid attention to me, dear viewer, listener, you won't have noticed this, I was not really paying attention, is I came up with names for all of my Rangers and left the sheet of names somewhere else. So I was trying to quickly remember what all my Ranger names were. So I will go through the ones I do remember. So we had the always faithful Aromir, and then we had, of course, his brother Boromir, and then Homophilus Ducray, the Ranger. We had Major Tom, Sue, Jude, the Ranger.
Named Sue.
The Ranger named Sue, and then we had Aragorn to Major Tom. We also had Faragorn, I think, was one of my Rangers.
I believe so.
Bungalow Bill, of course.
Of course. How could you forget Bungalow Bill?
And the Dudadane, who abides, man. He abides. I'm sure I've missed out one of them, but... I did Maxwell, of course. Maxwell
and the Silver Hammer. How could you forget?
Yeah, bang, bang. Maxwell's Silver Hammer. So that was all my stupid Ranger names and my army list. I did not go into this event expecting to do particularly well. I was hoping to try and win. Usually we go for that winning record. I was trying to just win 2 games was going to be my sort of goal, and just have a good time. Because I'm sure I've expressed this on this show before. 1,000 points was not a points level I was super excited about. But I was like, well, do something new, whatever, try something out. And then, really, so I was already sort of, wasn't overly, I didn't really care about trying to win or whatever about the Nova GT. And then they released Games Workshop announced that they had a new edition coming out. And I was like, well, just it's all, now that's what I'm excited about. And I'll just go and have some fun playing games. So.
Nice.
All right, Ben.
Well, I'm super stoked to hear all about the Rangers and the adventures of all of them with their silly names and how they do in this tournament. But we're going to start it off with one of my games, I think.
All right.
So, Sam, into my game 1, I was playing against Chris, who brought Thranduil's Halls. He had Thranduil, of course, on foot with heavy armor, 2 swords, and the crown. He had Legolas on horse, Toriel, and a Palace Guard captain. He also, of course, had a Wood Elf Sentinel, and I believe he had 44 or 45 total elves. And we didn't mention this already, but of course Nova is using the veto system, and we were vetoing out of pool 6, and we ended up playing Fog of War. I think that's pool 6.
All right. Very good. All right, Fog of War. If you are viewing, you can see the nice little deployment map. If you're listening, it is 12-inch up deployments. You have some objectives. Well, firstly, we have a game that lasts until a force has been broken, and once a force has been broken on a 1 or a 2, it may suddenly end. And then we've got some victory points to score. At the start of the game, secretly note down one of your hero models that may not be your leader, unless you only have one hero. You score 1 victory point if the nominated hero is still alive at the end of the game. If the nominated hero is still alive and has suffered no wounds, instead you score 3. At the start of the game, secretly note down one of your opponent's hero models that may not be their leader, unless they only have one. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the nominated hero. If you kill them, instead you score 3. And then you note down a piece of terrain in your opponent's half of the board. You score 1 victory point at the end of the game if you have more models than your opponent completely within your selected terrain piece. If your opponent has no models completely within the selected terrain piece and you have at least one, instead you score 3 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and yours is unbroken, instead you score 3.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Cool. So I will get right on into it. We were playing on this cool, like, Battle of Five Armies, Frozen River, Ravenhill board. It looked pretty neat. And I will say that where we ended up fighting was entirely my fault. We ended up fighting on one of the hills, but it was one of these boards that has slopes, a lot of slopes that we ended up playing on because that's river is fairly boring terrain. If you want to interact with the terrain on this board, then you're playing on the hills, you're playing with these rocks. And so I decided to play fairly defensively. After deployment, basically Chris had his whole army down on the river, I had mine up on this hill, and I sent a chunk of my guys, 13. I sent an expedition of 13 men of Minas Tirith. I should have perhaps have sent 14. I thought about it, but I was like, we don't have a hobbit to send to make a 14th man for this expedition. So we sent 13 men out across the ice to go claim my objective, and Chris had brought his whole army, pretty much. And we had this weird standoff thing where Legolas is on the board, so I just moved all my heroes outside of his range. I didn't want to get one-shotted off Shadowfax just yet. I wanted Boromir to have the option of riding out to rescue those guys out on the ice, or going down the hill to fight Thranduil. So I moved all my heroes back and then channeled Blinding Light with Gandalf just to protect the parts of my army that he could from the bows down below. There were also 4 bows up on the hill with Legolas, and they took some shots. Thranduil channels Aura of Dismay this turn. I get 1 kill with shooting. My rangers are pretty lucky and get a kill on one of the elves down below. And Legolas does shoot Shadowfax. Just kidding. I didn't have him moved out of the way. It looks like he's out of the way in this picture. I have a note down that Legolas shot Shadowfax and didn't get any wounds. So anyway. Turn 2 goes to Chris, which is totally what I wanted, because Legolas and Gandalf have this weird standoff where if Legolas wins priority and moves to within a range where he can shoot Gandalf, Gandalf now has the range to come and Sorcerer's Blast Legolas and take him off the horse. Because I can move 12 inches on Shadowfax and Sorcerer's Blast 12 inches, so I can like knock Legolas down. So there's this weird we're having this sort of weird standoff between where he's putting Legolas and where I'm putting Gandalf. So Legolas moves backwards this turn, away from Gandalf, which was fine with me. And we continue moving up. I get a lucky Sorcerer's Blast. Legolas having moved out of the way means Gandalf's free to move forwards up onto this hill. I get a lucky Sorcerer's Blast and manage to kill 3 elves with a single Sorcerer's Blast. So I knocked one of them back into 2 more and killed him with the Strength 5 hit, and then got 2 more 6s. It was like a free one too. I took a 1-die Sorcerer's Blast, rolled the 6. And got 3 kills there. And Legolas and his friends open up into my expedition, and my expedition of 13 men of Minas Tirith is now 12. One of them is dead. One of them is dead on the ice. I should say too that the Palace Guard captain has been called a heroic march this turn, and the elves go forwards because I have shown no inclination to leave my stupid hill. My thought here was that I was going to figure out which of the 2 rocks down below in the field beneath my hill were Chris's terrain feature. I was going to fight him over the terrain feature, basically, while just taking mine, because I had the high defense, right? I was thinking, I'm a high defense army. I can hold this ground really well while my mob of guys goes and either get stonewalled by Legolas, at which point I can send Gandalf and Madriel to go rescue them, or Chris diverts enough elves that I can then overpower the rest of his army. That was my thought. That's why I was staying on the hill, and I was doing a little bit of maneuvering. So we get into turn 3. I take priority. Not really what I wanted. Chris calls another march with the Palace Guard captain, so he's now actually trying to pin me on top of the hill. You're like, you've given up the board. You're stuck in this corner. Fortunately, my hill has a side route. You can see this long string of warriors of Minas Tirith in the picture who are coming around on a flanking mission. Not partly so I'm not just bottlenecked at the top of this hill, but also so that they can start, outflanking the elves.
I will say before you keep going that for those listening, hill is a bit of a misnomer. This is a table that like a third of it is like 6 inches higher than the others,
Yeah,
and this is a slope that leads from the like 6 inch tall section down to like a regular size gaming thing. So
yeah,
it's kind of like a cliff, a like rocky cliff that's sloping down. It's not like Ben is on one like 12-inch hill. It's like a big chunk of the board of the board, but
it is a big chunk of the board. But if you look at it, it's got these like snowy patches on it. Those patches are actually too steep to not that
Sure.
the steep. The accessible sections were still too steep for us to put models on, but sections of it we were like, these would have to be climb tests. So I have like 2 viable ramps. One of them is now blockaded by Chris's army, and the rest of my
Sure.
warriors have gone down this other ramp. And you're right, hill is totally a misnomer. It's not a hill. It's at the top of a mountain.
It's also painted like a rock, not a grassy hill. So,
Yeah. I throw another blinding light this turn. I've got it marked down. I guess I didn't have any. Guess I didn't have any good.
Do you not? I thought you said you channeled it the first time.
Oh no, I didn't channel blinding light. I have channeled it enough times in the past that I usually regret spending the might.
Sure, yeah. You just said you channeled, so that's why.
I misspoke. I did not spend the might to channel blinding light. And I get another kill this turn with shooting. Chris takes turn 4 priority and charges me up the hill. The elves are engaging. Thranduil is 3 elves back at this point. So he's not getting into combat. But the Palace Guard are coming up the hill, or the regular elves are coming up the hill. Palace Guard behind them. The elves I've been shooting with my rangers have been the Palace Guard with spears. My rangers are up on this sort of rocky outcropping to the left of the main battle line, and they've been shooting the spear supports as they were marching up the hill. I throw another Sorcerer's Blast with Gandalf this turn, this time spending a will on it and get another kill with the Sorcerer's Blast and knock Thranduil over. Thranduil, or before he got knocked over, when he went up the hill through the Aura of Dismay. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's next turn. So we knocked Thranduil over this turn. What's that? You've got a question look on your face.
Yeah, you said he cast Aura of Dismay.
Oh, Aura of Dismay. I'm sorry, the other part of the crown. Wrath.
Oh, okay.
No, Nature's Wrath.
Wrath.
Yeah, so Nature's Wrath is coming next turn. Through shooting and combat, we both get 2 kills this turn, and I guess my Blinding Light. So I think I got 1 shooting kill, the Sorcerer's Blast kill, instead of Blinding Lights, the Sorcerer's Blast kill, and I lose 2 in combat to the elves battling their way up the hill, which is when I realized I'd forgotten that Thranduil's Halls get +1 to wound, and instead of me being tough, high defense warriors dying on 6s, my army's now dying on 5s, and I was like, this is going to be potentially problematic. So I take turn 5 priority, and we get our first move off. Thranduil calls a move, and Boromir counter moves. Boromir goes first, goes charging on into the front line of elves, brings his warriors with him, and we reposition a little bit. Thranduil gets off the ground, climbs partway up the hill, and does Nature's Wrath on the crown in his turn. Gandalf had attempted to immobilize him while I was on the ground, but didn't go off. I think I rolled 2 dice and got a 2 high, and Thranduil spent 1 will on it and resisted. So Thranduil gets up, climbs up the hill, pops the crown with the Nature's Wrath, and Boromir just throws all 3 of his will and resists it. It's great when not all knocked over. And in the combat phase, we get a whole bunch of nothing. Boromir gets 1 kill this turn, and that is about all that happens. Next turn is a big turn. I win priority again, but Chris wins the move off. Thranduil calls another move, Madril answers, and Thranduil goes first. The elves rush back up the hill, re-engage. Toriel and the other elves are starting to spread out around the flank, so I've been pushing warriors around that right-hand flank, now down on the flat. And I've been maneuvering Theodred and my Citadel Guard. So Theodred is very obviously the hero that Chris should choose to try and kill. He's a canny player, he knows the game. And we're playing Fog of War, where you have to kill someone's hero. So Theodred has to charge, only has 2 wounds and 1 fate. So I've been playing him reasonably defensively. What I really want him to be able to do is to ride around the flank and just sort of mop up Chris's cavalry and his archers who have been slowly walking across the river, taking pot shots at me. Theodred's other job is to just run into Toriel. If I can set it up where I think Theodred can go into Toriel, we'll risk the Elven Blade roll off. Basically, hope we both strike to 10. Hope the Elven Blade roll off goes my way, and whoever wins that is gonna come out on top. It's probably gonna go Toriel's well. It's not really the fight I want to pick if I don't have to. But that's Theodred's job in this situation.
Enough speculating. More gameplay.
More gameplay. Okay. All right. So in the combat phase, I take another two kills, 2 casualties, and Legolas in the shooting phase has taken another 2 men off my expedition. The expedition numbers are thinning out. I take next turn priority. Chris wins the move off. Thranduil spends his last point of might and calls a move with Legolas as well. So Thranduil's now out of might. Legolas has spent his first point of might. Boromir answers again. Chris wins the move off. Battle lines re-engage, and Theodred is basically he's not going to get to go on his flanking mission. This is where Legolas is when he calls his heroic move. Theodred's not going to go on his flanking mission. He charges into Toriel because he's got to charge someone, and I'm like, okay, I sort of didn't play the opening of this game well enough. I'm on the back foot. I need to take an advantage that I can get. This battle line play has not been going the way I wanted it to. My expedition has been whittled down to like 8 guys, and Legolas is about to charge them, so I need to make a big move. So Theodred goes into Toriel. Boromir re-engages the elf line. Gandalf throws an immobilize at Toriel and eats off all of her will, but she does resist it. I think I got the 5, and she resists it. It also costs her 2 might to resist it, which is pretty nice. So that's when I was like, okay, Theodred's going into Toriel. In the combat phase, we get the strike off between Theodred and Toriel. Toriel wins the strike off. I think Theodred struck to 9. She got the 10, and she kills Theodred this turn, which is a real bummer. He had, I think, 2 points of might left on him at the end of this turn, so that was unfortunate. Actually, he spent 1 point of might to get to the 6, and yeah. Anyway, it didn't matter because she had the 10. So Theodred is dead this turn, and I have not been watching the clock. The clock time is running out. So next turn we call a heroic march and send Gandalf off to go save my guys from Legolas and his 4 elves. Legolas has of course moved into those warriors and chopped 4 of them to pieces.
Ew.
Yeah, all 3 of them to pieces. Chris just charged him in and was like, screw it, I've got 1 point. I called the move. I've got might left. I think he has to spend a point of might to win the duel, and kills a couple of them. And this ends up being the last turn. I throw a Sorcerous Blast at Legolas, peel all of his will off. He fails to resist it, but I don't manage to wound him. He gets knocked backwards, flying into a rock, and doesn't take a wound from either the Strength 5 hit or either of the 2 Strength 3 hits that he takes. In the combat phase, when I pile all my warriors over there in top of him, the rest of them are going to go claim my terrain feature. He wins the fight and stands up. I did win the last priority on this turn, so Legolas called another move and is now out of might. Gandalf and Madril and a handful more guys are on their way over to that flank. But that left Boromir just trying to deal with Thranduil and most of the elves, because I had not really killed that many. So I do think had the game continued, it would have gone Chris's way. It ended up being a 9-4 loss. Because he got to his terrain feature, protected his target, and what's the other? Got to a terrain piece, protected. Oh, and killed his target, obviously. Yeah.
And neither of you were broken.
Neither of us were broken.
Or you both were, I guess. For you to get 4, you'd both need to be broken. Well, I guess that's not true.
No, I got 1 point for my terrain feature. He had an elf contesting my terrain feature.
Oh,
and then I got 3 points for defending Boromir.
Gotcha.
I was trying to kill Legolas, which is probably maybe not the best pick, but I was thinking if I could just deal with him. If he was gone, then I was going to win, so I might as well just all my eggs in one basket. I should have picked the Palace Guard captain because I did manage to kill him fairly early on.
So.
But a fun game, if somewhat frustrating to play on a slopey hill, although it was my fault for playing that, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, fair enough. That is the thing with Nova, is the tables are awesome, but sometimes It can be a pain to play on. All right, well, into my game one. I was also playing Fog of War, so look at that, Ben. You get to chill out and not read the
Sit back,
scenario.
relax, and hear all about it.
I was playing against Colin, who was bringing a Mordor army, and his Mordor army was led by the Witch King on Fellbeast with 3 might, 15 will, and 3 fate. He also had the crown and the blade. He also had Kamul, the Easterling, on Fellbeast, and he had the Shadow Lord on Fellbeast.
Wow.
And Guritz, the Master of Reserves.
On Fellbeast?
No. If only. No, and then he had, basically a front line of Black Numenorians, backed up by a bunch of Morannon Orcs and some Orc trackers. We were playing on a super cool Isengard board. If you're viewing, you can see that very in-scale Orthanc. Just kidding, the Orthanc's like very tiny. It's really tall, but like very small round. It's sort of the best you can really do, right? And a bunch of these like Orc structures. Basically, I deploy as a single warband, bang in the middle, kind of like where I have a pretty good shooting lane. I've decided I'm going to kill Guritz, I'm going to protect Gimli, and I'm going to take a terrain piece that's like I'm never going to bother trying to get to unless the game somehow like drags on. I can send one ranger on a crusade. So we get into it. Turn 1 priority goes to me. And the Shadow Lord uses his Pall of Darkness, which is essentially blinding light, but evil. And Colin moves his army forwards. He uses a Sweet Drain Courage on Aragorn. You can leave this here for a minute because this is like many turns later. So he uses Drain Courage on Aragorn, which I think I just let go. He gets it off, and I'm just like, whatever, man. I have a 6-inch banner that makes Aragorn fearless. I'm not like overly worried about his courage being drained. The shooting phase, at this point in the game, Colin's army is wide enough spread that there's like a good chunk of a flank that I can shoot at without going through Pall of Darkness. I think I actually may have moved 3 inches forwards. I may have advanced a little bit in this because I was like, I'm going to be shooting into Pall of Darkness anyway. Like hitting on 4s versus 6s, what's it matter? Or like I might as well move because I'm going to be hitting on 6s. And then I shot at a bunch of stuff I could have shot at normally. So it didn't matter. So I was like, well, I should have stayed put. But I did still kill 3 Black Numenorians with shooting.
Wow. Did you spend any might to do that?
I probably did. I didn't. These games are going to be like kind of bizarre because it's pretty hard to keep track of all of the like which ranger spent what might when. But basically, in all of the games I played with the army, if I rolled a 5 to kill something that I needed a 6, I'd spend the might because I'm kind of don't need it on the move so much, and once the lines lock, like it's kind of I would rather burn it on the shooting early. And then turn 2 also goes to Colin, where he pushes forwards again using Pall of Darkness. I stay put, and this time he's managed to condense his army, so the whole army is being protected by the Shadow Lord. So I said, screw it, I'll just put all of my shots into the Shadow Lord. I managed to do 2 wounds to his Fellbeast and a wound to the Shadow Lord as well, which he passes his fate. And then I roll with like Aragorn's like my last shot. He hasn't used any of his might, so I like roll, get the 6, roll, get a 5, and I'm like, I'm spending the point of might to kill the Fellbeast. And then Colin was like, no, wasn't that the up or down? I'm like, you are right, it was. It goes into the ring wraith and then like didn't do anything. So for a brief glorious minute I thought I was going to kill a Fellbeast, but I also kill another Black Numenorian or something in that turn. I think maybe there was like a couple models I could shoot at without, and I sent like 3 rangers into them and got another kill. Turn 3 goes to me again. Again I stay put. And Colin pushes forwards. I think he stays outside of 6 inches of me intentionally, like he could have been within 6, but decided not to. Shadow Lord once again uses the Pall of Darkness, and he attempts to Black Dart a ranger and fails. Hilariously, I could have been like, that's clearly the ranger he's trying to kill, but just didn't even think about it. This time, Faragorn, the mighty ranger, shoots, hits the fell beast, kills the fell beast. Don't think he even had to spend any might on it. Awesome. So we've killed a fell beast through the Pall of Darkness.
Awesome.
Turn 4 goes to me as well. At this point, because they're outside of 6, I'm just like, well, I'm going to stay put for another turn. Aragorn's going to cause a heroic resolve.
Nice.
And then gets his courage drained. 3 ring wraiths try and drain Aragorn's courage. 2 of them, I resist one of them, and 2 of them go through. So Aragorn's head is now at -3 courage. Luckily, he doesn't care because Halbered's got a pretty cool banner. Turn 5 goes to me. And I guess this previous turn. So this was from the previous. No, this wasn't quite. This was on turn 4. Camul the Easterling also jumps in on this on the Dunedain, who's at the very end on the right. Basically, I have 6 range. I have a line of 3 rangers with 3 rangers behind them, and 1 on the side. And Camul jumps in and wins the fight against that ranger and hurls him through and goes through all of them. Poor Garland rolling 8 dice, needing 5s to wound. Gets 2 wounds. Only one on the dude who's been hurled, who passes his fate. And 1 on another ranger who also passes his fate.
Wow.
So turn 5 goes to me. Colin decides not to call anything, so I basically tag Camul with a ranger, and I'm able to get Elrohir into combat with Camul as well, and I put another I think I end up getting another ranger. No, I just get it's Elrohir, a ranger, and a spear supporting ranger. The Witch King jumps into the spear supporting ranger, and I think he stays outside of 6 of Aragorn, and so we don't have a huge amount of combat. Yeah, so here we go. So this is a picture of that before the Witch Kings jumped in. So I did have two rangers on Camul and Elrohir and a spear supporting ranger. So we get into combat. The Witch King calls a combat. One of my rangers in that combat calls a combat. One of the rangers fighting Camul calls a combat, and Elrohir calls the strike. Camul also calls a strike, because I know what Colin's trying to do is trying to have the Witch King go first and hurl into Camul's combat, which would just knock my rangers over, and then they would all get eaten. The combat goes to me. I strike higher, and So then it's Camul fighting Elrohir and 2 rangers, and I just roll super hot, and I think do 3 wounds to Camul, which just kills him in one go.
Two fate.
2 fate, 1 wound. Yeah.
I mean they're all wound, right? Yeah. I mean, I guess even if he was 3 fate, it would just kill him.
Yeah, I think. And
I think I'm
the
past 3 fate. Yeah, just kidding.
Yeah, or maybe I only did 1 wound. I can't remember exactly, but I have it noted down that Bungalow Bill is the one to do the final wound to Camul, and so therefore claims that kill. We get some other combats. I do lose. The Witch King kills a ranger and then runs off. I do lose another ranger, and so I lose 2 models but kill 3 this turn. Turn 6 goes to Colin. We get a move off. Guritz calls a move. Because I would have been able to get into the Witch King through some moving, I think, and one of my rangers calls a move. The move goes to Colin. Basically, we get our lines. Oh no, Halbered calls a move. Our lines relock. The Witch King fails to get a black dart. Camul is dead. The Shadow Lord is sort of hanging back at this point in time. And now I'm in with all my heroes are in. So we get Aragorn calling a free combat, Legolas calls a combat, Gimli calls a combat, Elladan calls a combat, and Dunedain calls a combat as well. And this is just an absolutely brutal turn. I kill 11 of Colin's models. Turn 7 goes to me, and we get another move off from the Witch King. The move this time goes to me. I think I'm able to throw. Halbered calls another turn 7. No, Legolas calls a move, and at this turn I'm able to get Aragorn into the Witch King. We're jamming in again. We get some more. So the Witch King strikes with his last point of might. Aragorn strikes. Gimli calls a combat. Elrohir calls a combat. Gimli has to spend a point of might to win his combat because he's trying to get into Guritz, I think, at this point in time. And he's able to do that. Elrohir spends a point of might to win his combat, and so this is when Aragorn gets in, and you can see Elrohir is like fighting one orc, and so Elrohir calls the combat, has to spend a might to win it, but then I'm able to put Elrohir and Aragorn into the Witch King. I was like, this is it, we're going to take the Witch King down this turn is the plan. I am able to do that. I think I win the. I don't remember if I strike higher or not, or if it. I think even if I think we at worst we were the same, right? And I had the Elven Blade and the.
Two of
so
them.
I win the fight. Aragorn puts a couple wounds on the Witch King. He may have even just straight done 3, and then Elrohir does the last wound and kills the Witch King. Gimli kills Guritz, and then the final turn. I think the Shadow Lord calls a move. Aragorn calls a move, and the Shadow Lord's now down to 1 single will. He's his last hero up, and I'm able to call a combat with Halberad, slingshot a Dunedain into the Shadow Lord to pull off his last will, and basically Colin's army is like non-existent.
Yeah, if you,
And we
I got a
kinda
little behind on my
called the game.
slideshow, but it's like, guys, oh guys.
Yeah, and we called the game at this point because it would have kept going, but I was just like, you know, he didn't have anyone. He was like, well, I just won't claim the objective because you'll be able to kill the models, or like claim the terrain piece because you'll be able to kill the models. So it ended up being a major win to me, 9-3, because I protected Gimli, I killed my target, and I broke him without being broken. I lost a total of 3 models this game.
Wow.
And Colin killed his target, which was a random ranger that he black darted pretty early in the game. So yeah, a major victory for the Grey Company. It was an awesome game. I just got, heroes just absolutely minced through people, Ben, and got to roll pretty hot. And dear listener, dear viewer, if you too want to roll pretty hot, I would highly recommend checking out our podcast sponsor, Ben. That's right, the Baron of Dice does in fact sponsor Gondor Calls for Ale. If you would like some beautiful square-cornered, hand-swirled resin dice, you should check out the Baron. He's got a whole series of dice based on different armies for the Middle-earth strategy battle game. And as a personal guarantee here at Gondor Calls for Ale, we guarantee that they will roll 6s at least some of the time. If you want to get some of those dice, you can find a link in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this episode, and also a promo code to give yourself a nice little discount. The promo code is capital G, capital C, capital A. So definitely consider checking out the Baron of Dice.
Ooh, awesome. Well, Sam, that sounds like a great first game. Way to go in strong with the Rangers. I reckon that sends you up to the tippity top of the tournament, perhaps, where you didn't ought to be. I don't know. We'll find out coming up.
Yeah. Who's to say? Yeah, it felt a little bit bad because kind of diced Colin off the table a little bit.
Sure.
I like to think I played well, but there's sort of not much you can do against 5 Fight 6 heroes and, so much might,
Right. Just hope that they flub their rolls and burn through all their might flubbing, and if they don't do that, then you might get chopped to bits.
Indeed. All right, Ben, should we get into your game too?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, look, more pictures of Sam's game. There we go. I think we went
speed through
those.
those.
So my game 2, I was playing against John, who had brought the Depths of Moria Legendary Legion. He had, of course, a Balrog of Morgoth.
What did you say? Got him.
You got me for a second there. That was good. Yeah, so a Balrog of Morgoth and 3 captains, 3 Mori Goblin captains, and 3 Black Shield Shatter Shamans.
Bummer.
And I lost the veto roll-off, and he's got 76 models in his army, and I vetoed Reconnoiter. I vetoed Reconnoiter because I really didn't like my odds playing Reconnoiter against that many goblins. Hindsight being 50-50, I wish I had vetoed the mission I ended up playing, which is this one, which is Divide and Conquer, because my army does not want to be divided. So anyway, we ended up playing Divide and Conquer.
Well, before I read you the scenario, I'm just going to tell you that the expression is hindsight is 20/20, because 50-50 is not a variety of eyesight you can have. All right, Divide and Conquer.
I don't know what comes out of my mouth, all right, Sam.
Well, I listen to some other Lord of the Rings podcasts, and every now and again somebody says something that I'm like, that is just not the expression, and so
I think
I can't correct them, but I can correct you.
Yeah, fair.
All right, Divide and Conquer. If you're viewing, you can obviously see the nice deployment map. If you're listening, you should know it's 2 12-inch bubbles off each corner. You get diagonal corners from each other. And you get 3 objectives, 1 in the center and 1 12-inch to either side. This is worth noting that this game is a pain in the butt, or this mission is a pain in the butt to play at a convention where all the tables are in a big row. If you're in a middle table, fine if you're on an end, but if you're in the middle, massive pain. All right, we've got a game that lasts until one force has been broken, and then after that you roll a dice, and on 1 or a 2 it may suddenly end. We've got some victory points. You score 3 victory points if there are more friendly than enemy models within 3 inches of the center objective. If there's at least 1 friendly and no enemy within 3, instead you score 5. You score 1 victory point if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3 inches of the objectives on the flanks. If there's at least 1 model and no enemy models, instead you score 2. You score 1 point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader, 2 if you kill them, and you score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. Divide and Conquer. Not a mission that I enjoy, Ben. And speaking of missions that I enjoy, and perhaps you also enjoy, if you, dear listener or viewer, would like to know more about the scenarios that Ben and I rate, and we will in fact rate them here, you should check out our Patreon. We have a whole bunch of extra episodes over there, a series of which we review all the scenarios in the match play guide and kind of give you our thoughts, feelings, and whether we like them, and rate them on a scale from 1 to 13 unexpected dwarves, the greatest ranking system ever created.
Absolutely. We also get into doing some faction reviews, and just this coming week we will be cracking open the upcoming supplement and releasing it in the coming weeks when we get the supplement and all, to talk about that with our 4-hour patrons. So yes, that will be very exciting. So Sam, Divide and Conquer against the Balrog. I'll get right on into it. I decided to put, because I didn't know how I wanted to break up my army, I couldn't decide. I decided that Gandalf was going to go with Theodred, because obviously he is bringing Theodred and some warriors from the Ramas Encor, who are guarding the walls of Pelennor Fields. They're bringing them to Boromir and the warriors of Minas Tirith, and we're fighting the Balrog in the woods. That's Anyway, that's how I decided to break up my force. It was Gandalf and Theodred, Boromir and Madril. It could have very easily been the other, different heroes divided differently. On turn 1, Gandalf spends a point of will to cast Fortify Spirit on Theodred and fails to get it off, rolling double 2s. I decided not to spend a point of march on that. Madril calls a march this turn, as do all 3 of the Goblin captains. John deployed in such a way that it was like 1 captain and 2 shamans, and then the Balrog and 2 captains and 1 shaman, something like that. I take turn 2 priority, and Gandalf spends another point of will to Fortify Spirit on Theodred, which goes off this time. Madril calls another march, as does 1 of the Goblin captains. The Goblin captain with the Balrog, I believe, calls a heroic march. And I am rushing to the middle, just trying to castle up, get to the middle, get Fortify Spirit on all of my heroes so that all of their shiny war gear doesn't get shattered. So here come the first of the shatters. 1 of the goblins decides to throw a 1-dice shatter at Gandalf in an attempt to shatter Glamdring. He gets the 6 on the 1 die. I spend, this was a mistake, 2 of Shadowfax's will and 1 of Gandalf's will. And get a 5 high on Shadowfax's 2 dice and a 1 on Gandalf's dice, and I can't spend Gandalf's might on Shadowfax's will. So Glamdring is shattered this turn, which was a real bummer.
On the plus side, Gandalf's not disarmed.
No, at least he still has his staff, but it does mean that my Elven Blade is gone, which was going to be pretty key to helping me win fights against the Balrog in my mind, as well as Gandalf's Strength 5. It would have been quite tasty against the Balrog.
It's not great, but could be worse, I guess.
But against the Balrog, it's the difference between wounding on 6s and wounding on 6s by 4, Strength 5 to 4. So, Gandalf has gone down and a little bit less effective, so that's a bit of a bummer. Another one of the Goblin Shamans throws a 1-dice shatter against Madril, which he gets off. Madril fails to resist it, and his sword is shattered. And one of them throws a 2-dice shatter at Boromir, who resists with 2 will. Turn 3 goes to John, and we get a move off between Gandalf and a Moria Goblin captain. The captains are, the goblins are in this clump. I just wanted to get Fortify Spirit on Boromir before another shatter came his way with only 1 will. So we managed to do that. I win the move off. Gandalf spends another point of will to fortify Boromir, quite successfully. Fortify Spirits Boromir. And then the Goblin Captain's move goes off. The Goblins charge into Madril and Boromir's warband. And then... Gandalf won the move off. Theodred countercharges, cancel into the Goblin Captain, cancels the move off. And then we just... Madril's warband engages some goblins. In the combat phase, Theodred does what you expect him to do, which is slaughter a whole bunch of goblins. We get a total of 6 kills this turn and lose 2 guys in return. Before we get into the combat phase, though, more shatters, Sam. This time, the 2 that spent 1 will last turn spend their remaining 2 points of will. One of them gets a 5 and mites it to a 6 in an attempt to shatter Boromir's banner. Boromir spends his remaining will and 1 point of might to resist. The next Goblin Shaman takes a 2-dice shatter, gets another 6, and Boromir spends his Fortify Spirit and 3 more might to resist, putting Boromir out of will and down to 2 might. And the last Goblin throws another shatter at him on 1 dice, gets a 5, spends his last point of might from the Shaman to make it a 6, and Boromir fails to resist. It doesn't. Have got 2 points of might left on Boromir, and I think I rolled a 3 high on the Fortify Spirit dice. So the banner of Minas Tirith is shattered this turn, which is most unfortunate for me.
I don't think it was worth spending 3 might on the banner, but
probably it wasn't.
Because he's got so many more,
Yeah. I don't know. I thought I'd sort of got through them all, and that I'd be sitting there with 2 might left on him, and anyway.
Sure.
So now I've got no banner and down to, I think, 1 or 2 might left on Boromir. So things are not looking good. Not looking good for me. And I'm basically going to run through the rest of this game. The Balrog moves up. He lashes one of my Citadel Guards forwards. Doesn't kill the Citadel Guard or the Citadel Guard's horse. After some discussion with Devon, we were trying to decide if you lash a cavalry model and kill his horse, do you still pull the remaining infantryman towards you? It didn't matter because it hit the rider in the end, but the answer is yes, because you haven't removed the model from play. The model is still there.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, so he lashes the Citadel Guard in. Citadel Guard wins the fight against the Balrog, gets the 6 on his 1 dice. Balrog doesn't get the 6, neither do the Horde of Goblins. So the Citadel Guard fights the Balrog off for a turn, which was pretty great. I was watching him like, oh, he's going to get lashed. Oh, please die. Oh, he didn't die. I'm going to get a Balrog a turn sooner than I expected because it's going to be combat. But it was nice to watch him fight that off. There's Theodred killing a whole horde of goblins, and then we get into sort of the rest of this game, which is me going like, shit, I'm out of resources. Throw everything at the Balrog and hope for the best. I got 2 turns of striking against the Balrog with Gandalf and Theodred. Neither time did I manage to strike up to 10 with them, but the Balrog never got the 6 either. So I won 2 fights against the Balrog and put 5 wounds on him, which was pretty nice.
Okay.
And I, because I managed to get him trapped. I was actually really pleased that despite being out of resources, I was doing a really good job on the board of Boromir's warband, like spearheaded Boromir into the Balrog and then split in 2 to sort of make these 2 lines where we were separating the Balrog's half of the army, keeping it on one flank of the Balrog, and then the horde of goblins that weren't with the Balrog. We had such a thin line of warriors in Minas Tirith. It really hurted losing that banner. Like the turn it went, I started losing all my fights. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so I did a really good job of shielding all of these goblins, so the goblins couldn't peel my heroes out of combat. And then Gandalf's warband arrived and basically was just throwing Fountain Court into the back of this Balrog to keep it trapped with this like other screen of warriors of Minas Tirith keeping the Fountain Court from getting peeled out. So I was able, I got three rounds in with the Balrog. On the first turn with the Balrog sets Gandalf on fire.
Nice.
Gandalf doesn't care. He's going to fight this Balrog set aflame or not. It's fighting the Balrog of hell or high water. I decided not to double strike. I got down to I think 1 might on Theodred and 1 on Gandalf. I decided to save one of them for the move off because at this point he was out of might. So I struck with one of them, didn't get to the 10, saved it for the move off, won the next move off, or lost the next priority, called a move, and now out of might. The Balrog still doesn't get the 6. We fight him off for another turn. I did get the 6. I wish at this point, given that neither of us were rolling 6s, I wish I'd saved that last point of might because I lost the last priority, which is basically all he needed. Like my lines are just getting so thin. It was I really enjoyed this game actually, despite being on the back foot and eating all these shatters. You're right. I probably shouldn't have blown through all of Boromir's might like that on my resist rolls, were just stone cold. But on the last turn, he's able to get goblins into my heroes, able to peel them out of combat, and is able to kill Gandalf with the Balrog. And it is only a minor loss, 3-5 to him. Sorry. We were dead even tied for bodies in the center. I had managed to ring it off because all of these fights were happening on the center objective. I think the Balrog's base was on the center objective.
Gotcha.
So I had essentially been able to wring his entire army away from the center objective to the point that I was broken. My leader was dead, but we had an even number of bodies around the center objective, so no one scored any points for that. We both got 2 points for a side objective, and I got 1 point for leader kill. He got 2, so it was a 3-5. So a really, really fun game. But
yeah, sounds like you fought it out as well as you could. I mean, I kind of think you need to go into that game being especially I'll try and resist, and if I roll a 5 and he's on a 6, I'll spend the point of might. Yeah. But I'm playing that the banner's gone, and that my heroes are out of stuff, and I'll just sort of keep the might. But
yeah, it would have been. I should have kept it. I should have just been whatever, his banner's gone.
No.
I also should have chosen to play Recon. I think at least then I would have been in a clump. I'd have had more time to I wouldn't have felt rushed to try and get my fortified spirits up on all my heroes. And yeah, I mean, it would still have been an uphill battle because 76 goblins in Reconnoiter is tough, but
sure.
Yeah.
But you can make them walk at you when you have a reasonable number of bows, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
John was a super awesome opponent. We were throwing Lord of the Rings jokes and quotes back and forth at each other all game. Gandalf and the Balrog had a really fun time. I think this is probably my favorite game of the event.
Oh, very nice.
All right, Sam, that was my game too. Not a good start so far for Ben. 2 losses. Tell me, how did it go for the Rangers?
All right, Ben. Well, for the Rangers, you were correct. We reached the peak, the heights of table 5 we were playing on. And I was playing against Big Al, Alisher himself. And we played Storm the Camp.
Oh. I could have been more prepared for that. Storm.
While Ben is unprepared, I will go through Alisher's list. His army was led by Galadriel. He had Legolas. He had Isildur, and he had Tom Bombadil with some combination of Númenóreans, halls of Thranduil elves and Galadrim elves.
And I thought I had a super list. All right. Storm the camp. We've got 12-inch deployment zones coming out of opposite table corners. The campsites are also the deployment zones. A campsite is captured if during the end phase of a turn you have more models entirely within your opponent's campsite than they do. Should your model subsequently leave a captured campsite, it will no longer count as being captured. In order to keep an opponent's campsite captured, you will need to keep your models within your opponent's campsite. Models that are within their own campsite will defend it at all costs. A model that is within its own campsite at the start of a turn will automatically pass any courage test it is required to make for the remainder of that turn. A game that ends when one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. You score 3 victory points if your force managed to capture your opponent's camp, 6 if you've captured their camp and your camp is uncaptured, 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader, 3 if you kill them, 1 victory point for breaking the enemy force, 3 if they are broken and you are not. Alright, Sam, give me the nitty-gritty.
Alright, well, Ben, as you can see, we were playing on the most fun board at Nova. It's a really cool board, but it's a total pain to play on. It's like the mat it's on is like a carpet that's kind of dyed green, so it was mostly okay. Huh?
It's like a fuzzy blanket.
Yeah. It was mostly okay for me because most of my models were heavy in metal, so they sort of weighed themselves down. The Halberad absolutely hated it, and most of Alish's models were not metal, so hated it all. So this is going to be a weird game to talk about. I think we both Alisha and myself went into this game basically knowing who was going to win. Alisha is an incredible player, super awesome dude. He's got the world's greatest poker face, but I can get him to smile and have a good time. And know him well enough to know that just because he's looking serious and concentrating doesn't mean it's like he's not having fun or I can't have fun kind of thing. But my army not very good. His army quite optimized, and so I could have played Storm the Camp of just making him spend all of the turns walking to me, shooting as he went, and just like really tried to fight in choke points and around, and like basically I could have tried to play for a draw, but I was like, I'm not overly interested in that. I don't think it's very fun, and then we just sort of like drag this game out for no real reason. He probably still wins at the end. Basically Galadriel channels Blinding Light, then Tom Refreshing Songs so he's got Blinding Light up, and we have turn 1 goes to me. I like move into this woods. Turn 2 goes to Alisha. Turn 3 goes to me, and we're just like moving forwards at this point. Or he's moving forwards, and I'm kind of like dawdling around, not doing anything. Nothing really happens until turn 5. He kills a ranger with shooting. I haven't killed anyone with shooting. Turn 6, I finally successfully kill an elf. I'm also rolling, like, unlike my previous game, where I was rolling very hot, I was rolling decidedly cold, like Legolas using his 2+ to hit. I think missed like 3 shots in a row kind of thing.
Classic Legolas.
Yeah, his Legolas then killed, over 2 turns, killed Halberad, because he's the only character without an elven cloak.
Poor Halberad.
Yeah, and so like by turn 8, which is around here, I've like moved up kind of to the center of the board, just thrown as many models into like combat as possible, and I strongly considered calling a combat with every single model I had in combat, but decided to be semi-restrained. So instead I called all of the dice you can see on the screen a combat. So it's only 4 of them, but it's mostly with rangers. And it just goes like really poorly for me. I like won 1 of them and didn't kill anything.
Yeah, I imagine his army's out fighting you in a lot of those combats with the Galadrim pikes and stuff, fight 6 and stuff.
It doesn't even need the pikes, just an elf outfights most of my army.
Right.
And Numenorians were a tied fight, and he's got elves in the front at this point, and he can sometimes he'll get a pike into one of my fight 6 heroes, and we have a roll off. But yeah, it just like doesn't go very well. We played to turn 10. And like around turn 8 or so like after this turn when I've like lost a bunch of stuff, we're like I'm getting close to breaking, and I think this one we said ends on 25%. I actually don't know that
Yeah,
you said.
ends on quarter.
So it was like he was like, well, I think this is gonna like end kind of soon, and like I'm probably I might anyway. He was like, I don't know that I'm really gonna win that big. And I was like, oh, that's not true. You've got like a knight, a Mirkwood Cav that you can just like tie this guy up, shoot him over, and then you just don't kill me for one more turn, and you score the camp. And he was like, oh, well, I'm not trying to get like massive wins, so I assume he was trying to sort of avoid the top people just steadily creep up. But that's essentially what happened. Is he managed to get a knight into my camp, and I get kind of like one turn of I move Legolas back, take my 2+ shot into the knight, and to try and kill him, because I'm like, well, I'm like not gonna give it to you, right? I'm not just gonna be like, there's nothing I can do about this. And either he misses or he doesn't kill him, and it just like doesn't matter, and then he kills the rest of enough to end the game at that point. He was, super chill about it. He could have been way more oppressive and just thrown Tom into Aragorn or one of my big heroes every time. And there was a point where like a move went to me. There was a point where I stupidly like Galadriel tried to transfixed Aragorn on a 6, and Aragorn used up some number of will to resist, and then rolled a 5 or like a 4, and I used Mighty Hero and a point of might to resist, and then Tom charged him, and I was like, that was really stupid because I saw Tom right there and just like didn't think about it.
Right.
But there's a point where like he let me walk through Tom's control zone to tie up a Númenórean with one of the twins, so Aragorn could have a fight against Isildur, kind of showdown stuff. And so it was super cool. But it ended up being a major loss, 0-9. He held my camp and broke me without being broken. So it was sort of like a pretty uneventful game, because yes, he courted me, but that he only killed 12 models, so he killed like Halbarad, Gimli, and all 10 of my rangers.
Yeah, doesn't sound like a terribly interesting game, if I'm honest.
No, it kind of wasn't, because the conclusion was like basically foregone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's it stormed the camp. The best I was gonna do was draw him.
Right.
Like maybe I got super lucky and held him out of my camp and like could break him without being broken.
I mean, yeah, you've got enough might that you can keep calling moves, I guess. But with Tom, he can keep like pushing Tom into someone's control zone, winning the fight, and just bouncing you backwards.
Yeah.
And like eventually, choke points or not, eventually Tom will just bounce you into your own, like through and into the camp, and you can't stop Tom from walking into your camp.
Well, Tom can't score the camp, but
that's true. I guess that's true.
But yeah, I mean, essentially, it's a game I was not willing to play in such a way that I was going to win, and I think even if I had been like, I'm going to give it a go, I still don't think it would have made a difference. So that was it. My game 2, major loss, which was a little more how I expected the army to do, but it was fun. And I, as I said, I think I wanted to get 2 wins with the army, and I'm 50% of the way there.
Nice. Well, a good start for you. I'm a little disappointed with myself at this point, but have given up any dreams of glory, and I'm just leaning into having a fun old time coming up for my games ahead.
I should have played Pods of the Druidan.
You're right, Sam. I honestly spend all this time making this stupid soup list and trying to tweak it and optimize it and blah blah blah, just so that I could play with Gandalf, and then went and did terribly with it, and so much rather taken a more thematic list and done terribly with it like you did, because I'd have been in the same spot and would have at least have played something that I felt was more interesting. As fun as it is to play with Gandalf, I could have made it a more thematic Gandalf list.
On the plus side, last hurrah of a soup list, so you did it.
Yeah, that's true.
Alrighty. Well, as this episode is going on for an hour, we're going to sort of speed through or, move along into the next thing. And this is the time, dear listener or viewer, to turn off if you don't want to hear the results or just about the convention in general, because that's what we're going to go into now. So, Ben, Nova Open. Thoughts, feelings, I guess maybe more specifically Lord of the Rings and the Nova Open. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling pretty great about it. I mean, I had a great time. This is now the second big convention where I've showed up without my army finished painted and have then spent an entire day sitting in some corner of the convention. It's been set up both times. They've had a hobby corner, and I've hung out with some weird, wacky, or just listens to the painting nerds. Like I'm a nerd, right, Sam? You know, I play my Lord of the Rings. I roll my dice. I love it. I love all the nerds. But there are different flavors of nerds, and I'm discovering painting nerds as a whole new kind of like of dorks out there, and so just listening to these hilarious. I couldn't see what paint they were talking about, rattling paint pots and like, oh, this is so smooth, or like, oh, I don't like these colors. Anyway, it was really fun just hanging out in the painting area, finishing my fountain court, or at least getting them tabletop ready, and then speed painting through Madrill to get him ready for the con. So I would absolutely encourage anyone that thinks about going to these big conventions, take a day early. Maybe finish your army ahead of time, and then bring some hobby projects to work on, because the hobby area is definitely worth checking out. A good hangout time.
Yeah. Suspicious or curious that since I stopped painting all your armies, you've not been getting them done in time.
No comment.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. You know, started out, we had a really early day on Thursday because I had an early painting class. I had to be there at 8:30, which meant we left at like 6 in the morning, but we're kind of up earlier than that, obviously. And then we had some Chaos and Ardor, which was awesome. Chaos and Ardor is like probably the most fun you can have playing Lord of the Rings, I think.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then, you know, doubles was super great. We'll have an episode in a couple episodes time about the doubles event, so we won't go into much detail about that. And then the GT was super fun. You know, really cool tables. Lord of the Rings, the tables always attract loads of people. You get loads of people.
Out of any of the tables of any of the game systems, the Lord of the Rings has the best tables.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Some of them are a bit bland, but for the most part they are. And I bitched about my first one, but for the most part they are fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too. Like, I wandered through the big pit of 40k players, and I, didn't really think about the tables. Then got to the end, and there were some pretty cool ones. I was like, oh man, these are really cool. And then I realized that in all the 40k, and I believe it's true for the Age of Sigmar stuff too. Maybe not quite as true for Age of Sigmar, but they basically in 40k for sure, every table has like this is the terrain setup we're using. No, it is true for Age of Sigmar because they were offering like free sportsmanship points if at the end of the round, at the end of the day, you reset up the terrain for the next like mission pack for the next day, which is really cool in the sense that like you can actually find out who the best player of 100 or 300 people is because everyone's playing on the same terrain. So there's no like, well, I brought a shooting list against a combat list, and we played on an open field, and I shot them off because every table is set up the same. But it does mean you have pretty boring looking tables. So trade off with the Lord of the Rings, you have these awesome looking tables, but it kind of means that like you kind of have to get a little bit lucky, I think, to not hit a table. Like you can just like lose in round one if you have an army that's bad against a certain thing on an open table, like a shooting army against whatever on an open table. But tables looked awesome. It was super, super cool to see a bunch of people we know play a bunch of games, hang out a bunch.
Oh my god! The Lord of the Rings has also got the best community. Oh, well, I don't know too much about the other communities, but we have a great community. I mean, like you said, meeting old friends again, seeing all the familiar faces, and then making a whole bunch of new friends. We had a great time hanging out with everyone. A really awesome convention.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to go through? We could wax lyrical about the event as much as we like, but would you like to go through? Do you want to go through the placings for us?
Yeah. So I do top three. I mean, I've got them all. Go through top three. All right. So in third place, with a good army, we can talk about the army lists if we want. I have those as well. We have Caleb. In second place, with another good army, we have Mitchell Hammond, and in first place, with Tom Bombadil, Galadriel, Isildur, and friends, we have Alisher Amino from the Philly SBG. He went 5-0, won all of his games.
I believe that's true for the other two as well.
3 major victories, then a minor victory, then another major victory.
Which is the same for Mitchell. and Caleb had a draw in his first game. So I think Alisher took the tournament by the second tiebreaker or the first tiebreaker, I guess, of victory points. I think he beat Mitchell by 2. So, playing for more points in that game against me could have been the difference. Caleb was playing Minas Tirith?
Minas Tirith, the Misty Mountains, and the White Council. He's got Boromir, Denethor, Madril, Saruman the White, and Gwaihir the Windlord.
Yeah.
And Mitchell is playing Khazad-dûm with Durin, a Dwarf King,
two Dwarf Kings and
King's Champion.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah. Super cool that Caleb running a soup list, Alisher running a soup list. Tired of that shit. That shit's going away. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that Mitchell came in second with
pure
Durin.
Yeah.
Also, Mitchell and his brothers do the Durin show, so extra fitting. I kind of hope all 3 of them played Durin. But also kind of funny, I saw that heard he came in second and was like, and that he was playing Dwarves, Khazad-dûm, and Durin. I was like, that's so cool. I can't wait to steal that list, see what he's done with it, And then I was like, this is 1,000 points, and I don't really want to play any more 1,000-point games, so now I don't care about the list. But still super cool that he came in.
So stoked to see Khazad-dûm take second. Pure Khazad-dûm, not flowy. It's just Durin and King's Champion. It's like
good number of Vault Wardens. It looks like
50 bodies total, which is I think I said 46 before. That's wrong. That was the next list down. It's 50 bodies. It's, nice numbers in a high defense army. It's clearly works well. Yeah.
So super cool and. Nice to see some different kind of nice to see a different, more thematic list do very well. He must have, he's obviously a very good player, as is Alisher and as is Caleb. Not to take away from them, but to take away from them, I don't like their non-themey lists.
Yeah. Also, Khazad-dûm, not the strongest list around. Definitely not a bad one, but there's no one's, not super powerful. It is interesting, Sam, if you look at the top 10. I believe most of them are playing good, which is just so different from Novas or of years past. The times have changed, and I mean we all know they're changing. So who knows what we'll all be playing in the coming year?
Well, we had 4th place was Easterlings, 5th place was Pure Lothlorien, 6th place I don't know, 6th place Fiefdoms. Very interesting. I think you just got the ability to take more big heroes in 1,000 points and still get a good number of bodies, and good does that better than evil does. Yeah.
I'm looking at Alish's actual. I mean, it's the way I'm assuming this was submitted to the TO because I got this from.
Best Coast Pairings.
Someone posted it in the Discord. Isildur's Warband. 8 guys with shield, 8 guys with bow, 2 guys with spear. It's like it's not like Mitchell's Warband, which is 2 times Vault Warden team, 50 points.
No, the one that's submitted on Best Coast Pairings is Galadriel 6 guard, Court Guard, 7 elf shield, 1 wood elf banner, 1 elf spear. Yeah. Oh, I see, guys. It is.
Yeah. Isildur Horse and Shield, 8 guys shield spear. It's
yeah.
I believe in one of his other tournaments, or they're talking about his list on one of the other podcasts. It might be Unexpected Podcast, and it's like homies. He's calling them homies. It's like 8 spear homies, 8 bow homies.
Sure.
Highly amusing.
Yeah. So a great event. Ben and I didn't do terribly well. You'll hear about the rest of that in the next episode. Takeaways, 1,000 points, definitely not how I like to play Lord of the Rings. I think smaller is more fun. I'm so excited for the Allies Matrix to go away. I think it's such a shame to say that, because I think they're, probably my all-time favorite army, right? Or one of my all-time favorite armies that I've ever played was my silly Hobbits and Ent alliances. Almost 100% sure that won't be playable in the new editions without the Allies Matrix. I will happily sacrifice all of those cool themes that GW hasn't been like, we should make this a playable theme, because everyone who plays in these events has ruined it. I'm kind of like, we don't get to have nice things because you guys have ruined this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People aren't
so
using the Alliance Matrix to make fun, wacky themes. They're making
yeah, it's
goofy.
just like, I want this really good model and this really good model and this really good model, and Yellow Allies doesn't really punish me for doing that. So, sure, why not? You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me getting fired up right at the end. Anything
Like,
else you want to talk about before we close out this episode, Ben?
No, I don't think so. That's a wrap for this episode. We'll be back in 2 short weeks with our remaining battle reports from the rest of the GT, and then we'll talk about some doubles, Nova doubles 2 weeks after that. Maybe we'll chat a little bit about Chaos and Ardor at some point as well.
Yeah. Yes, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please consider giving the video a like, subscribe to wherever you're listening or watching this. Even if you're just listening and want to go over to the YouTube channel and give us a subscribe, that's super cool. I like to see that number slowly tick up, as I like weird things on the internet, numbers on the internet, find fascinating. And thank you so much to all our awesome Patreons. We gave it a plug earlier, but we didn't say that we really, truly appreciate all your support. It really, really helps us out and enables us to keep making these ridiculous episodes. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no micro bubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.